The Grayson estate stood like a fortress of glass and silence at the edge of the California hills, where the world ended in sky and steel. It wasn't a home, not in the way homes were meant to be. It was architecture, sleek, precise, sterile, floors polished like ice, ceilings high enough to swallow echoes, and windows that reflected everything but let nothing in. Leo Grayson sat behind his monolithic black desk, staring at the endless stretch of vineyard below. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass, painting harsh white lines across his tailored gray shirt. A tablet rested in his hands, but he hadn't scrolled in minutes. He was thinking about the voice he hadn't heard in over 4 years. "Mr. Grayson," came a voice over the intercom, soft and clipped. "Gwen, his assistant." "Yes." "She's here." He didn't ask who. He never asked any more. The staff knew what that meant. Leo stood, tugged his cuffs down, and turned to face the hall mirror. It reflected a man in his mid-30s, clean-shaven, iron-pressed, exact, but his eyes looked older. Not from time. From what time had taken. He walked to the main hall where Gwen stood beside a slender woman with a canvas bag over one shoulder and hair pulled into a practical bun. Her coat was modest, her shoes scuffed, her eyes quiet but unflinching. "This is Dr. Ivy Miller," Gwen said. "Pediatric rehabilitation, formerly St. Jude's Hospital, currently consultant through the New Haven Foundation." Leo's gaze swept over the woman. She didn't fidget, didn't flatter, just waited. "You're younger than the others," he said. "I'm cheaper too," Ivy replied, not smiling. Leo's brow ticked. A flicker of something, amusement, crossed his face, then vanished. "Follow me." They walked in silence through the glass corridor that led to the therapy suite. Ivy took in the house as she moved, spare, echoing, untouched. There were no photos, no toys, no signs a child lived here at all. Until they reached the door. Leo stopped and rested his hand on the polished handle. "Before you meet him," he said, "know this. He doesn't talk, he doesn't engage, he doesn't play." Ivy looked up at him. "And yet, you keep hiring specialists." He didn't answer, just opened the door. The room was sunlit, lined with soft foam flooring and quiet shelves of untouched equipment. And, in the far corner, hunched over a set of blocks he wasn't stacking, sat a boy. 9, pale, thin, with deep gray eyes that looked like they belonged to someone who'd seen too much for someone who had barely lived. "Caleb," Leo said softly. The boy didn't move. Ivy walked in slowly and knelt a few feet away, lowering her bag to the floor. She didn't greet him, didn't ask his name. She simply took out a small dinosaur toy and placed it gently in front of her. Then she sat cross-legged, silent. Caleb turned his head by barely a degree. That was more than Leo had seen in weeks. Ivy waited. 2 minutes, then 5. She didn't speak, didn't push. Finally, Caleb reached forward and nudged the dinosaur with one finger. Not much, but a choice. Leo saw it. His throat tightened. "I'll give you time," he said, more to himself than her, and left the room. That evening, Ivy sat alone in her one-bedroom apartment in East Pasadena. The walls were cracked, the heater noisy, but it was hers. On the small coffee table lay a stack of overdue bills, medical invoices, and a letter from a specialist in Boston with a big red circle around a number, $226,000. On her phone screen blinked a photo of her daughter, Lily, age 5, oxygen cannula across her face, big brown eyes that didn't understand why her chest always hurt. Ivy picked up the photo and pressed it to her chest. She whispered, "Just a little longer, baby. I'm going to find a way." The next morning, Leo sat in his private office watching the security footage from the therapy room. It had become a habit. He no longer trusted reports or specialists. He trusted his eyes. He watched Ivy enter, sit, offer nothing but presence, and watched Caleb stay. "She's doing nothing," Gwen had said after the first session, but Leo knew better. Doing nothing was the hardest thing of all. He tapped the intercom. "Send her in." Moments later, Ivy entered. Same coat, same posture, same quiet confidence. "You sat for 45 minutes yesterday," Leo said. "You didn't speak. You didn't initiate contact." "I didn't intrude," she corrected. He narrowed his eyes. "Is that your approach? Patience is treatment?" She met his gaze evenly. "He hasn't been given a choice in a long time. I'm giving him that." Leo leaned back, folding his arms. "I'm paying for results." "You're paying for connection. You just don't know it yet." He almost smiled. Almost. "You think you can reach him?" "I think he wants to be reached," she said. "But not with charts, not with drills, with time." Leo looked away. "I've hired 9 specialists in 2 years." "I'm not a specialist," she said. "I'm a person. That's what he needs." Leo studied her for a long moment, then finally said, "Keep going." On day 3, Ivy brought a small Bluetooth speaker and placed it near Caleb's playmat. She didn't press play until he looked at her. Then she started a quiet lullaby. Piano, slow and gentle. Caleb's fingers moved, not precisely, but he pressed 2 blocks together in time with the beat. Ivy didn't say a word. Later that week, after a session, Leo walked her to the main hallway. "What's your story?" he asked. "Excuse me? You're not here for the salary, and you're not here because of prestige. So why are you here?" Ivy hesitated. "My daughter," she said finally. "She needs heart surgery. I can't afford it." Leo's eyes sharpened. "So you're doing this for the money?" "No," Ivy said quietly. "I'm doing this despite the money." He paused. "How much?" She looked at him, hurt flashing behind her eyes. "Don't." "I can help." She straightened. "And what happens after that? I become another debt on your ledger? Another problem you solve with cash?" Leo looked genuinely confused. "Isn't that what you want?" "No," she said. "I want you to see your son. I want you to be in the room, not just on the payroll." And then she turned and walked away. That night, Leo stood in Caleb's doorway, watching his son sleep under star-covered sheets. He hadn't stood in that doorway since the night of the crash, since his wife bled out beside him, whispering, "Don't let him grow up alone." And he had, despite everything. Despite the nannies, the therapists, the nurses. Caleb had grown up in a house full of people, but without presence. Until now. Until a woman with worn shoes and kind eyes sat on his son's floor and taught him silence could be sacred. Leo turned and walked away, whispering into the dark, "I'm trying." The following week brought a shift, not loud or dramatic, but undeniable. It began with a sound so small it almost went unnoticed. A laugh. Caleb had never laughed in front of Ivy. Not in her first week. Not when she played songs, not even when she dramatically dropped a foam noodle on her own foot in mock pain. He had smiled, yes, small, hesitant, uncertain, but never laughed. Until she brought the puppet. It was a simple sock puppet with googly eyes and yarn hair. Ivy named him Marvin. Marvin, the movement monster. He had a habit of getting all his lefts and rights wrong, and couldn't remember his own name without singing it. "Marvin," she sang in a silly voice, twisting the puppet to boop Caleb on the nose. Caleb blinked. Boop. She did it again. This time his shoulders quivered, his lips twitched. Boop. And there it was. A soft, raspy chuckle, half air, half magic. It escaped like a secret and hung in the room like a blessing. Ivy froze. She didn't react, didn't push. She just sat there, letting it echo. Caleb lifted his hand and touched Marvin's yarn hair. Again, he whispered. Leo wasn't in the room, but he was always watching. That night, he called her into his office. You got him to laugh. I didn't get him to do anything, Ivy said. He allowed it. Leo sat back, studying her. You're different. You say that like it's a liability. It is. Most people who work for me understand hierarchy. I'm not working for you, she replied calmly. I'm working with your son. Silence stretched between them. Leo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're right. That surprised her. I've been avoiding him, he said. I thought if I controlled everything else, his care, his progress, the best doctors, I could make up for not knowing how to be with him. Ivy didn't speak. She just waited. I've failed him. Now she responded, No, you've grieved him. Leo's gaze sharpened. What do you know about grief? I know what it smells like, she said. Burnt toast at midnight, coffee gone cold 5 times a day, pill bottles lined up like tombstones. He blinked, startled. My daughter was born with a hole in her heart. AVSD, complete atrioventricular septal defect. She said it clinically, but her voice trembled. They said it was fixable, but every fix came with another complication. She's 5 now. She sleeps with a monitor beside her bed and wakes up every time I'm not there. Leo's jaw tightened. I went back to work when she turned 3, Ivy said. I needed the insurance, but it never covered enough. The surgery she needs now is out of reach. I took this contract because I couldn't take another ER shift. And because your son reminds me of mine. You have a son? No, she said softly, but I know what it means to love someone so much you'd give your breath for theirs. And I see it in you, even when you're hiding behind numbers. Leo didn't answer for a long time. When he did, it was barely above a whisper. He was in the car. She waited. His mother was driving. I was on a call. The nanny had the day off. It was just them. A truck ran a red light. She died on impact. He looked down at his hands. He was screaming when they pulled him out. His legs weren't broken, but something inside him folded. He stopped speaking 2 days later. Ivy felt the gravity of his words wrap around the room like fog. I've tried everything, he said. Money, facilities, programs, but not presence. I couldn't give him that. You still can, she said. Leo looked up, eyes red. How? Start with being in the room, and stay. The next day, Leo entered the therapy suite. Ivy was on the floor as usual, Marvin dangling from her hand. Caleb looked up when his father entered. Leo froze at the door. Caleb didn't flinch, didn't turn away. He patted the mat beside him. Leo knelt stiffly. Ivy said nothing, just kept Marvin quiet. Caleb offered Leo the puppet. Your turn, he whispered. Leo took it, hand trembling. Hello, he said awkwardly, pitching his voice an octave too high. Marvin? Caleb laughed again. Not because it was funny, because it was brave. That evening, Ivy sat beside Lily in the cramped pediatric wing of St. Bridget's Memorial. The room smelled like disinfectant and grape-flavored liquid medicine. Lily was asleep, clutching a stuffed fox. The doctor's words echoed in her mind. 3 weeks, maybe 4. She needs the surgery soon. Ivy looked at her phone. The number hadn't changed. $226,000. A notification appeared. Deposit received, $50,000. Grayson Holdings Discretionary Fund. Her breath caught. She called Leo immediately. I didn't ask for this. I know. You went behind my back. I'm trying to help. You're trying to buy gratitude." His voice hardened. "You said you needed time. I'm giving it. I said I needed to be respected. You don't get to save me. I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to save him. Then be there for him, not with your bank account, with your hands." Click. The next day, Leo showed up at therapy without a suit. No phone, no tablet, just himself. And Caleb reached for his hand. Over the next week, things shifted again. Ivy introduced more physical movement, balance cushions, resistance bands, soft step-ups. Caleb resisted at first, but Ivy never forced him. She played music, followed his lead, made each step part of a story. "Let's pretend the mat is lava," she said once, "and we have to get to the other side using the stepping stones." Caleb rolled his eyes but stood, took a step, then another, then fell. Leo rushed forward, but Ivy held up a hand. "Let him get up." Caleb did, slowly, grinning. One afternoon, Ivy found Leo sitting outside on the patio, looking towards the distant hills. "I was wrong," he said, "about you. I'm not here for your approval." "No," he said, "but I'm giving it anyway." She sat beside him. "He trusts you," he said. "That's not easy. I don't want him to think I'll disappear." "You won't." "I might," she said, "if Lily doesn't get the surgery." Leo turned to her. "I'm not trying to buy you." "Then just sit with me," she said. He did. They sat in silence as the sun fell below the ridgeline, painting the sky in golds and purples. That night, Ivy returned home and found Lily asleep, clutching the drawing she'd made that day. Her, Ivy, Caleb, and Leo, all holding hands. The heart beneath the armor was learning how to beat again. Caleb stood on his own for 12 seconds. Ivy counted silently, her fingers pressed to the edge of the foam mat, lips held in a breath she didn't dare release. 12 seconds. No braces, no support. Just legs that used to tremble under the weight of hope now holding up the full measure of a boy learning he wasn't broken. When he finally fell, it wasn't hard. He caught himself on his palms and burst into a grin before Ivy could even move. Leo stood by the doorway, leaning on the frame, speechless. 12 seconds, Ivy whispered. Caleb looked up. "That's more than 10. You beat your record," she said, "by a lot." The boy glanced toward his father. "Are you proud?" Leo's reply was immediate. "Always." It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't stiff, and it wasn't the kind of line Leo Grayson usually said, but that day it was real. After the session, Ivy helped Caleb into his wheelchair and guided him toward the kitchen, where Gwen had set up a tray of snacks. Leo lingered behind with Ivy. "I want to talk to you," he said quietly, "about the surgery." She tensed. "Please don't." "I'm not offering more money," he said. "I'm offering time." She looked at him, guarded. "Explain." "My legal team can set up a foundation, medical grant, anonymous donors. The payment doesn't have to be from me. I'll never say a word to anyone." She studied his face. "And what do you get in return?" "I get to look in the mirror and not feel like I'm just watching someone else save my son." She blinked. That she hadn't expected. "Let me do this without making you small," he added. "You've given Caleb something no one else ever could. This isn't a transaction." Ivy looked down. "Then let me think about it." He nodded. "I can wait." But not everyone could. The scandal broke 3 days later. It began as a whisper, just a name mentioned in a private call. Then came the email leak. A journalist looking for a story, a source with a grudge, a document tracing Ivy Miller's expired therapy license. Not her medical credentials, those were real, albeit dormant, but her clearance to practice solo rehabilitative sessions had lapsed, and someone had noticed. Grayson employs unlicensed therapist to treat disabled son in secret, read the headline. Underneath, grainy photos, Caleb standing between parallel bars, Ivy kneeling beside him. One caught Leo watching them from the corner of the frame, a hand over his heart. By noon, the board of Grayson Holdings had called an emergency meeting. By 2, Ivy was gone. Leo didn't speak to anyone that day. Not his shareholders, not his lawyers, not Gwen. He stared at the article again and again. They called Ivy reckless, accused him of endangering his son, said emotional-based therapy was pseudo-scientific indulgence. He called her. Voicemail. He called again. Nothing. It wasn't until evening that Gwen knocked gently on his door. She left a note, she said, voice low. Leo unfolded it slowly, Ivy's handwriting, neat and firm. You said, once I gave your son something no one else could, let him keep it. Don't let them take it away because of me. Tell Caleb I believe in him, and I'm sorry. Caleb didn't eat that night, didn't speak, didn't smile when Leo tried to read him a story. He just turned to the window and whispered, She left. Leo sat beside him. She didn't want to. Did you make her? The boy asked quietly. Leo flinched. No, but I didn't stop it either. A long silence. Then I don't want to walk anymore. Leo felt something crack inside him. Not loud, but deep. He left the room, walked down the hall, through the kitchen, out into the garden, and there, beneath the branches of a twisted olive tree, he sank to the ground and wept. Across the city, Ivy sat beside Lily's hospital bed. Machines beeped in soft rhythm. Her daughter was pale, small, far too still for a 5-year-old. The specialists had been kind, but the news hadn't changed. The window is closing. Her phone buzzed. An anonymous deposit, $200,000 to St. Bridget's Foundation. She didn't need to ask who it came from. She closed her eyes, and cried too. 2 days passed. No sessions, no music, no Marvin the Movement Monster, no laughter. Caleb sat by the window, silent. Leo tried everything, bribes, games, even letting the boy play with his most sacred vintage model cars. Nothing. It wasn't about play, it was about loss. Then, one night, as Leo sat beside his son's bed, a small voice broke the quiet. She didn't even say goodbye. Leo closed his eyes. I think she was scared, he said finally, that she broke something. She fixed me, Caleb whispered. I know. Silence. Do you miss her? Caleb asked. Every second. Then go get her. Leo looked at his son and knew what he had to do. The next morning, he drove to St. Bridget's. No assistant, no driver, just Leo behind the wheel of a sedan he barely remembered how to operate. He found Ivy in the hallway outside Lily's room. She looked exhausted. He stopped a few feet away. You didn't tell me how bad it was. She didn't look at him. It wasn't your concern. I made it mine. Ivy sighed. Why are you here? He stepped closer. Because Caleb hasn't smiled in 2 days. Because I haven't been able to breathe. And because my son asked me to bring you home. Her lips parted. He said that? He said you fixed him, and I didn't disagree. She finally looked up. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. They want to revoke my clearance, Leo. Then let them. I'll hire you as a personal companion, or an educational advisor, or Marvin's handler. I don't care what they call you. Just come back. I'm not a loophole. No, he said. You're the reason my son believes in himself. She exhaled. You're really this stubborn? He held her gaze. Only when it counts. Ivy crossed her arms. One condition. Anything. You stop trying to save me. Leo smiled. Deal. When Ivy walked back into the Grayson estate the next day, Caleb was waiting in the therapy room, wearing a purple cape and a cardboard crown. You're late, he said. Ivy knelt and held out Marvin. I had to fight a dragon, she said. Did you win? Barely. Caleb took the puppet. Let's practice walking, he whispered. Leo stood at the doorway, blinking back something he didn't name. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't learning to walk. It's choosing to stay when everything tells you to run. The morning light crept slowly into the Grayson estate, golden and hushed. Ivy stood barefoot in the therapy room, stretching her back before Caleb arrived. The mats had been rearranged overnight, creating a winding path like a gentle maze. On one side, small parallel bars. On the other, step-up boxes with soft turf padding. It wasn't just for physical training anymore. It was a place of stories. The lava walk, the jungle climb, the space mission. Each session was built around imagination as much as muscle. Ivy understood something most therapists never asked. Children didn't recover through repetition. They recovered through joy. And Caleb was proof. He entered the room that morning wearing a shirt that read, I do my own stunts, his wheelchair rolling beside Leo, who carried a folded walking frame in one hand and a hopeful uncertainty in his eyes. What's on the agenda? Leo asked, setting the frame down. Today, we cross the bridge to Dinosaur Island, Ivy said, tapping her map of foam steps and colored markers. The prize, a sticker, and marshmallows. Caleb grinned. You had me at marshmallows. They started with breathing, then simple leg warm-ups, then the hard part, standing in the center, unsupported, shifting weight from one foot to the other. Ivy knelt nearby, ready to catch him if needed. Caleb stood, then moved. His right foot found the pad. His left followed. He wobbled, paused, laughed. Ivy reached out instinctively, but stopped herself. He didn't need catching. He just needed belief. Leo watched from the side, arms crossed, jaw tight, but not with tension, with awe. Later that afternoon, while Caleb napped and the house settled into its rare quiet, Ivy remained in the sunroom, sipping cold tea and journaling notes from the session. Leo joined her unexpectedly, carrying a folder. I've been thinking about something, he said, placing it on the table. Let me guess, she replied. Another job offer disguised as a favor. He smiled. Not quite. Inside the folder was a printout, a sketch, rough and vivid, a proposed design for a new kind of center. Open spaces, music integration rooms, therapy gardens, family rest areas. Ivy blinked. Is this? It's what you started, he said. I just gave it walls. She ran her fingers along the edges. This looks like something real. It could be. He hesitated. I want to fund it. Leo, not because I owe you, not because I want your gratitude, because this, what you've done with Caleb, isn't a miracle. It's a method. It needs to be shared. She looked at him, cautious. What would your board say? He shrugged. Let them talk. And what would my name be? Founder, he said simply. She stared at the folder, her voice quiet. We'd need a team. I'll find the best, but only if you lead them. She was silent for a long moment. Then, finally, let's do it. That night, Ivy walked to Lily's room at the hospital. She sat beside the bed and pulled out the design sketches, showing them to her daughter. This might happen, she whispered, a place where no one feels small or forgotten. Lily stirred, smiling faintly. Will I get to go there? Ivy leaned down and kissed her forehead. You'll be the first girl through the door. Over the next few weeks, the Grayson estate transformed, not physically, but spiritually. The sessions grew longer, gentler, deeper. Caleb was walking with the support of handrails now, 10 steps, then 12, then 16. His confidence bloomed not in big bursts, but in steady, blooming waves. Leo joined more often, not to supervise, just to be there, to hold a cushion, to read a book nearby, to clap when Caleb needed it and stay silent when he didn't. Ivy made sure the environment reflected progress, not pressure. There were new posters, colorful mats, and a chalkboard with Caleb's wins written in big letters, 12 seconds standing, 1 full laugh, 30-second balance. First joke told, about Marvin, of course. The boy had even begun drawing. One morning, he presented Ivy with a picture of 3 stick figures, one with a ponytail, one with a cape, one holding both hands. Underneath it, written in shaky block letters, "We don't fall alone." Ivy had to excuse herself for a full 10 minutes. One rainy afternoon, Leo approached her while she was organizing balance blocks. "You've changed everything," he said. "I just showed up." He nodded. "That's everything." She turned to him, more serious now. "And you? What about me? Are you still hiding behind dollars and decisions?" He looked away. "I don't know how not to," he admitted. "My whole life I've built things by staying one step ahead. Emotion was a liability. And now?" He met her eyes. "Now I'm learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's presence." A pause. "Would it surprise you," he added, "if I said I'm afraid?" "No," she said softly. "It would surprise me if you weren't." That weekend, the 3 of them went to the park, just a simple Saturday. Caleb walked 5 steps on the grass before falling and laughing so hard he couldn't get up. Leo lay on the grass beside him, both of them looking up at the clouds. "Do you think Mom sees me?" Caleb asked quietly. Leo blinked once. "I do." "Do you think she'd be proud?" "I know she would." They were quiet for a long time. Then Caleb said, "I'm not afraid to fall anymore." Leo reached over, brushing the grass from his son's sleeve. "That's what makes you brave," he said. That night, Ivy and Leo sat by the fireplace while Caleb slept. Ivy cradled a mug of chamomile. Leo held nothing, just his hands in his lap, unguarded. "I used to think love was a gift you earned," she said, "but I think it's really a decision someone makes to keep showing up." He looked at her. "Then I must be in love." She didn't speak at first, then said, "So must I." They didn't kiss, didn't even move closer. They didn't have to. What was between them wasn't about grand gestures. It was the kind of love that builds a foundation, not a fantasy. The next morning, Caleb handed Ivy a note before therapy. "I wrote it for Lily." She unfolded it. "Dear Lily, when you're scared, pretend Marvin is sitting on your shoulder. He says silly things. He helps me walk. You're braver than you know. Your friend, Caleb." By the end of the week, Lily had completed her surgery. It was successful, stable heartbeat, strong recovery. The doctors called it textbook. Ivy sat beside her daughter's bed that night, holding Caleb's note, her chest so full it felt like breaking. She returned to the Grayson house the next morning with eyes brighter than Leo had ever seen them. "She made it," she whispered. He hugged her. The first time they'd touched without hesitation. Spring arrived not with a grand entrance, but with the gentle murmur of life returning. The air shifted. Trees grew heavy with green. The hills around the Grayson estate rippled in shades of awakening. And, for the first time in years, Leo Grayson's mornings began with something other than silence. Laughter echoed down the halls. Sometimes Caleb's, sometimes Lily's, sometimes Ivy's, and sometimes quiet, reluctant, stunned even by his own surprise, Leo's. The house had changed, not in architecture, but in spirit. The therapy room, once cold and clinical, now bloomed with color. Ivy and Caleb had named the foam stations Dragon's Tooth, Rocket Ramp, and the Wobble Swamp. On the wall, a new mural unfolded slowly. Caleb painted it himself with Lily's help. A superhero leaping across rooftops, cape flying, braces on his legs like badges of honor. But the biggest change wasn't in the house. It was in the people inside it. On a Tuesday morning, Ivy arrived early to find Leo sitting at the dining table, scribbling notes on a legal pad. No suit, just jeans and a navy sweater. The man who had once worn silence-like armor now looked settled. "You're up early," she said, sliding into the chair beside him. He handed her the pad. "Drafting our vision statement." She read aloud, "Rising steps. A place where children don't just recover, they rise." She looked up, heart caught in her throat. "You wrote that?" she asked. "With some help from Marvin," he said with a crooked grin. Ivy laughed. They broke ground 2 weeks later. The lot was in the city's East District, open, flat, surrounded by modest homes and playgrounds. A temporary sign stood where the front gate would be. "Coming soon, Rising Steps, Integrated Child Recovery Center." A place for every step, every story, and every soul. Leo gave a short speech. Ivy stood beside him, Lily holding her hand. Caleb watched from his chair, but his braces were on. He decided to stand only when the building opened for real. "We're not opening a clinic," Leo told the crowd. "We're opening a promise." Back at home, the small family celebrated with cake and paper crowns. Lily demanded a talent show. Caleb played piano with one hand and banged the tambourine with the other. Ivy sang, badly, on purpose. Leo told a story about his childhood that no one had ever heard. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Ivy walked into the living room to find Leo staring at an old photo. Him, his late wife, and baby Caleb in a sling. The photo was faded, the corners curled. "She'd like you," Leo said softly. Ivy sat beside him. "I hope so." She always wanted to build something that mattered. She would have loved Rising Steps. "You did that." He turned to her. "No, we did." He hesitated. "I don't know where this is going, us, but I know I don't want it to stop." She smiled. "Then we keep walking. Together." Caleb's final milestone came quietly. No fanfare, no cameras, just one quiet afternoon in the garden, when Ivy asked, "Do you want to try walking to the bench?" He looked up, surprised. "No supports?" "No supports." Leo watched from the patio. Lily sat cross-legged nearby, holding her breath. Caleb stood, 1 step, then 2, a wobble, a correction, then 3 more, and then he was there. He sat on the bench and let out a breathless laugh. "I did it," he whispered. Leo crossed the distance in seconds and crouched in front of him. "You're incredible," he said. "No," Caleb replied. "I'm just not scared anymore." A month later, Rising Steps officially opened. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was modest. No VIPs, no paparazzi, just families, kids, music, a therapy dog named Rocket, and enough smiles to light the entire street. Inside, Ivy gave the first tour, the music room, the story circle, the therapy maze. Leo walked behind her, notebook in hand, pretending to take notes. Really, he just liked hearing her voice. At the end of the day, Caleb gave a short speech. He stood beside the microphone, no wheelchair, no frame, and said, "I used to think being strong meant not falling. Now I know it means getting back up." The room erupted in applause. Ivy wiped her eyes. So did Leo. So did half the staff. That evening, back at the house, Caleb pulled Ivy aside. "I wrote something," he said shyly. For you. He handed her a folded paper. Dear Miss Ivy, you made me brave, not because you fixed my legs, but because you saw me before I did. You didn't yell, you didn't rush, you just stayed. And now I can go anywhere. P.S. Tell Marvin he's still terrible at lefts and rights. She hugged him tightly. You can go anywhere, she whispered, and you will. Later that night, Ivy sat outside under the stars, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Leo joined her, 2 mugs of peppermint tea in his hands. You're quiet, he said. I'm full, she replied. He handed her the mug. Full is good. They sipped in silence. I never imagined this, she said. A center, a family, a future. I did, Leo said. She looked at him. I didn't know it would be you, he added, but I always hoped I'd find someone who believed in things I forgot to believe in. She reached for his hand. Thank you for saving my daughter, she said softly. Thank you, he replied, for saving my son. They didn't kiss, but they didn't need to. Their hands were entwined, their breath steady, their steps aligned. Epilogue. 6 months later, a new sketch went up on the therapy room wall at Rising Steps, drawn in bright crayon by Lily herself. 3 stick figures, 1 boy, 1 girl, 1 woman with messy hair and a puppet on her shoulder. Above them a caption, "This is what love looks like when it doesn't give up." And beneath it, in Caleb's handwriting, "We rise together." If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Your presence here means more than you know. If you believe in stories of quiet strength, second chances, and the healing power of love, hit that subscribe button and join our community of hearts that never give up. Thank you for being here.